how hard our ancestors and how hard our leaders worked. So we must carry on that legacy.
And I just want to just remind our listeners a little bit about you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
First of all, my name is Serge Valcourt, and I'm a retiree now, and I write poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and I write different styles of poetry, romance, spiritual, historic, you name it. So far, I've written over 700 poems,
Wow.
and in three different languages.
And what are those languages?
Those languages are English, French, and Haitian Creole.
And have you written that book yet?
Well, not.
We spoke about it.
No, it's on us. It's on the way. It's on the way.
I know you
It's
have a
on the
lot
way.
of things
Because
on your plate.
like
so.
I said, I'm just coming back from Florida, and my sister was sick, and I'm a helping hand.
Right.
So I'm doing a lot.
And
So,
you retired, but you're a lot busier, I understand, than when you were working.
yes, I'm busier now.
Tell us a little bit about what your work background was. Remind us.
Well, I used to teach, in the public school system,
And what did you teach?
elementary,
And what? So it's a different subject.
different subjects. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I also taught some courses in college. French as a second language.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I taught
Very
that in
good.
college as well.
Maybe you can help me brush up on my French. I mean, believe it or not, I was an A student, honor student in French in college. So much so that they wanted me to tutor in French.
Well, you need to.
But I said no, I'm not going to tutor in a language that's not my own.
But knowing the language is one thing, but practicing the language—that's when you
I
become good
can't
at it.
speak
You
a
have to
lick.
practice speak. Yes,
Only thing I can say is j'ai complètement oublié. That's all.
j'ai complètement oublié.
Yeah. And it sounds like I really know how to speak French because that's advanced. Meaning
Yes.
I have completely forgotten. That's
Yes.
what it means.
Bonjour, mon frère Valcourt. Bonjour.
Bonsoir, bonsoir. At this time of
Oh,
the day, you say
bonsoir?
good evening,
Yeah,
bonsoir,
bonsoir.
bonsoir.
Yeah, because it's evening.
It's the evening now. In the
Oh,
morning,
see, I learned something right away.
yeah.
Oh, you didn't know about bonsoir?
Yeah, I
And
know
you
about
always
bonsoir, but in here the sun is still up, so I'm looking at
Oh,
daylight.
the sun is still up there?
Hmm.
Yeah, but the time is not a different time zone, is it?
Okay.
You see,
well,
and,
bonsoir
Just
then.
because the sun is there, it's still the same 6 o'clock.
in the morning,
Bonsoir.
in the
Bonsoir.
morning from 8 early morning from dawn to noon, you say bonjour. But at noon, you say bon après-midi. Bon après-midi, good
Yeah,
afternoon.
après-midi.
Bon
It's
après-midi.
afternoon.
But during the evening, you say bonsoir.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, bonsoir, mon frère.
Bonsoir,
Comment
monsieur.
allez-vous?
Ça
Comment
va
vas-tu?
bien, ça va bien pour vous.
You
Ça
know
va
what
bien?
you're saying, mon frère? What is
My
that?
brother.
My
Oh.
brother, my brother.
Yeah, I know. He knows French. He is always trying to, he's trying to woo the ladies with his
Non,
French.
parce que je demande. Parce que je demande.
You don't
dans
try to
la
sound
français,
all sexy and romantic by speaking French, but he does a good job, I have to say.
You tell me it's working?
Well, I didn't say that.
Okay,
I didn't quite say that, but I'm saying you're really good at it.
well,
But what do I know? I mean, I'm not a natural
Well, neither am I.
natural French
I'm not
speaker.
fluent in French. I just know a few key phrases because I lived there for 3 years.
Because you know how to get the ladies, huh?
I don't know about that. I know how to get back and forth.
Yeah, back and
Oh.
forth. How?
No, I don't mean that. No pun intended.
Back and forth. All
No
right.
pun intended.
So,
But anyway.
so you write your poetry, in French, French Creole,
And Haitian Creole.
and Haitian Creole. It is,
And in English. Yes.
That's amazing. And people were blown. Our listeners were blown away how you have all these poems in your head that you can recite it. Now, I just want to let the listeners know that I want you to keep an open mind because you may not be religious, and a lot of your poems have religious tones or spiritual tones background.
Spiritual references,
spiritual references. Every single poem, right? There's
Every
not a
single one of
poem
them.
that does not have that in it, right?
Yes. You're
Yeah.
right.
So I want our listeners to keep an open mind because I mean the what do you call it? I don't know. We don't call it lyrics. The words. What do you call it? The words in the poem.
Yeah.
You need to really pay attention to that and just put aside if you're not really spiritual or religious.
Why do I think you're addressing that to me?
To you? Well, if the shoe
If the
fits.
shoe fits, right?
I mean, I know you're not particularly. How do you say religious?
Religiously inclined, yes.
You're not religiously inclined. So not just you. I'm saying a lot of our listeners may not be, and so I want them to keep an open mind because the poems are really, really awesome. And
yes, I remember. I remember the last time he was on the show.
And this is why our listeners requested to have him back, and we thought that it was a great opportunity to have him during Black History Month. But before we get into the poetry, and I think when Mr. Valcourt, do you say Valcourt or court?
Valcourt.
You do pronounce the T.
The T, yes.
Okay, so in names, because I know in French you normally don't pronounce the final
silent.
T.
Yes,
right.
silent.
But
yes.
in your name it's actually Valcourt.
Court.
Okay, so Mr. Valcourt, before he recites his poetry, see, I'm getting old. Help me out, T-Mac. I'm getting old. Oh, we want to talk about a little bit about Black history, and I have some questions for him, and then we're going to get into the poetry. So at the time that we're discussing Black History Month and going through the questions, at any time, if callers want to call in, I'm going to give you the call-in number, but we're going to, when he's reciting the poems, we ask that no one calls in, and we're probably going to stream that live on Facebook. So if you're a Facebook friend, which I have many, tune in. You will see, you'll get the notification that we're streaming live, okay? So we will do that while because you need to see him too. You know, it's very good to hear him, but he adds to it with his facial expressions and gestures, and I think it's good to see it. Now, okay, T-Mac, do you have anything you want to add before I get into the Black history?
Well, I think that we need to keep in mind that, this is Black History Month.
And
but
then
we
we're
do
heading
acknowledge,
towards the
we do
end.
acknowledge being black all year, and I think that so we want to keep it in the context of uplifting our culture generally. Not just for the month, but generally. And other than that, I'm looking forward to hearing the poetry and being inspired.
Okay, great. I just want to say, history is often reduced to a handful of memorable moments and events. And this is certainly true with Black History Month. In Black history, those events often include courageous stories like those of the Underground Railroad. We hear that over and over, and historic moments like the famous I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But these are only a few of the significant and important events to know and remember. But every year, that's all you hear. I have a dream. And Martin Luther King one of the reasons why they said probably he was assassinated because he was talking about reparations and about all the injustices, but they don't ever show that. They only show the I Have a Dream speech. But anyway, so that's what. So in an effort to honor this expansive and growing history, Black History Month was established by way of a weekly celebration in February known as Negro History Week. That's how it started. It was a week, a Negro History Week, by historian Carter G. Woolson. You might know some books written by Carter G. Woolson.
Yeah, Carter G. Wilson,
yeah.
all right. Yeah, there's a public housing development named after him as well.
Right. So, but just as Black History is more than a month, as you said, so poignantly, T-Mac, that is more than just a month.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm not. I wasn't trying to be facetious or anything. I'm just saying that, when we set tones and we create mindsets, and it's often a good policy to try to, set a foundation for the mindset that we want to propel. I think on our show, what we endeavor to do is broaden mindsets and give people access to broader perspectives. And in that vein is why I made that comment.
Right. But I mean, we always know that we have numerous events and figures that are often overlooked. I mean, every year it's about Rosa Parks, it's about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., about Harriet Tubman, and others are overlooked. I just want to quickly mention the diverse history of historically Black colleges and universities. I don't know how many of you know the professors. Do you know anything about the professors at the beginning of these schools?
Are you asking me that, or
anyone? I mean, Mr. Valcourt and you, and for the listening audience, something to think about.
Well,
the historically Black colleges and universities.
Yes. Well, me personally, my heart, is broken for one reason, and one reason only, because our history has been hidden,
Yes.
from us. We were not told the truth.
Exactly.
Previously you mentioned that, only people, you hear of, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. But there are other peoples, Africans, before
Exactly.
the Atlantic slave trades. Boats were coming from Africa. Africans came here. They came here to enslave them. They came to America to enslave them. But a lot of these Africans went back to Africa. They were conquerors,
Right.
Yes. But these things were never mentioned. So they mentioned Rosa Parks and
the
Dr.
others Martin Luther King
for a
Jr.
specific reason. It's
Harriet Tubman.
just to build it, to let us know that, hey, Black people are not that progressive. Only a couple of them. That's all, and they live in like.
Well, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to subjugate a people that have a positive self-image about themselves. If you're going to colonize and subjugate and enslave, one of the initial things that you do is destroy people's self-image. So by not keeping us informed, or by slanting history, or by doing insidious stuff to make us see ourselves,
them.
Right, benefits them.
Yes.
So, I mean, and I know we have to. We want to get to the poetry. I just want to make one observation. During the State of the Union, to show how insidious this stuff can be. During this, to me anyway, during the State of the Union speech, where Trump acknowledged the black the black people that they released from prison, and said that oh yeah, we're doing great things. We're I think subliminally, right? That is always he's always associating black folks with some kind of criminality or unemployment. He did it again today when he posted that thing about Spike Lee, right? And tweeted that thing about Spike Lee, and he said he's done the most that any president for African Americans. And then he said things like employment and criminal justice. Those are not the only things that we associate with.
Right.
But
why are they and they're defining us in those types of genre? Criminality, unemployment. Okay, it's good if you address those things, but don't always make the association. You're going to talk about criminal justice in a State of the Union speech, and the only people you're going to show that have benefited are black people.
it's not that I want to be rude or anything, but I'm a man, I just tell the truth, like it is. These people are a bunch of hypocrites. The reason why I say that, take Kaepernick, for example, the football player. Mm-hmm. What he did, he set up an example, for our society mistreated, black boys. So he recalled, their attention by manifesting, what he did during the football game. And everybody condemned him, including the president.
Right. Right.
Including the president. And what the guy was doing, was, in other words, the steps that he took was a step that sends a message to society. This injustice that they're doing to our boys, black boys, has to stop. And the president was against it.
Yeah, and additionally, he tried to make it like it was unpatriotic because he's saying, well, he dishonored the flag and the national anthem.
He dishonored the flag.
Now, I just want to...
And the national anthem. He didn't dishonor the flag, and if people he didn't want to sing the national anthem because the second verse of the national anthem is about slavery and doing things to slaves.
Exactly.
So it's,
yeah,
a lot of people, like you say, a lot of people don't realize the depth of this kind of mental enslavement that they perpetrate on us in the name of patriotism or in the name of uplifting us. We're helping. No, it's hypocritical, like you said.
Now, at this time, I want to give the callers a chance. If you have any questions for Mr. Valcourt or any comments on this subject, you can call us at 646-690-2976. That's 646-690-2976. And we want to encourage, I know you have a very busy life and things are being thrown at you, Mr. Valcourt, but we want to encourage you to write that book, right?
I will.
Because I've gotten emails, I've gotten Facebook requests. They're all waiting for the book.
Yes,
so
it's
on the way. So 700 poems, that's an awful lot. But I just want to throw this in first, and then we'll have a little music break, and then we'll come right back. Without further ado, we're going to hear the poems, and we're going to stream live on Facebook. Okay? So how many of you know, because I asked this question, but we didn't get into it, the Jewish people's role in the HBCUs? And that's another thing that people don't know. Jews were persecuted in this country too. And so when they came here, they couldn't find jobs anywhere. And they began to teach at historically black colleges and universities where they were accepted. So they came here looking for jobs, but nobody would. So due to the depression and xenophobia and the rising anti-Semitism, many of it them found it difficult to find work here. So it was the HBCUs that employed them as professors, and that's our connection with Jewish. So more than 50 of them found positions at HBCUs in the segregated South.
I think the distinction that stands out for me, right, is that with the annihilation and the persecution of the Jews did not remove them from their cultural roots, right? It did not. They still had a perspective of their history, right? The Holocaust served in a lot of ways to enhance their perception of their history.
And that's why they were able to move along and we stayed back, so to speak.
Right, because they stripped our history. They stripped I don't. My name is McKinney. That's not an African name. I don't know what my African name was.
My name is McKinney too.
Right. So, I'm just trying to illustrate that we have been. We've all been persecuted, but there's different levels of persecution, and there's different results. So they were able to come back and teach at schools and be accepted because in a lot of cases they could hide their identity in certain instances.
And that's what I was telling my students today. That I was telling them, I couldn't go there and say, "Hey, look, I'm not black." Because you can see, but they didn't want to say they were Jewish.
I want to add a little more on that.
Okay.
You've heard of the Tulsa, Oklahoma,
right?
Greenwood, town in Oklahoma,
right?
Right.
This society, I'm referring to this society, a black society, black professionals. Black doctors, black lawyers. That happened right here in the United States.
Exactly.
And after the First World War, this particular area, region of the world, these people were the most, successful. So the government didn't have enough fund, to hire, the soldiers. So they went to these people to get a loan from them. From these people. Also, these were black people, black engineers, black doctors. But guess what? During that same time, the Jim Crow, KKK, were so jealous of them, they went in. The American military interfered and burned up the city. And took over.
Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street. Yeah, that's where it started at.
Right.
Black people started with these things. Now, how dare the white man going to tell you that black people are stupid? No, they know that. Because, like you said, Carter Woodson just mentioned in his book that you give a chance to the black man, he will excel.
And
he will excel.
Right, they knew this.
And they know that.
So they didn't want to give you a chance.
They don't want to give you a chance.
Exactly. So I think at this point, it's at the halfway point, we're going to have a little music break. And then at this time, when we come back, so don't touch that dial, so to speak, we're coming right back. And we're going to start with your poetry, okay? That's the treat of the evening. So...
used to be my daydream, and now it's my reality. This used to be a silent voice inside my heart. Now it's screaming to be free. It's screaming to be free. It's screaming to be free. This used to be a silent voice inside my heart. Now it's screaming to be free. It's screaming to be free. This used to be a silent voice inside my heart. Now it's screaming to be free.
All right, so we're back. That is Screaming to Be Free by K.F. Hawks. Yeah, nice song. Thank you, Jade, our engineer, for choosing that song. So, as I said, without further ado, we're in for a treat. We're going to hear some poetry. And Mr. Valcourt is related to Black history, you would say? Or
Yes, related to Black history. The title is Bondage.
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 Okay. So as I said, we're going to be streaming live on Facebook. So we started, right? Okay, so you
Okay.
can start.
Like I said, the title of this poem, is Bondage. And it goes like this. I can see the tears of sadness that cover my face. I can hear the words of prejudice that oppress my race. I can feel the painful scars on my skins that were damaged by the master's wit. I suffered a pain of bondage from birth to grave because I was born in captivity. For decades, I toiled with pain and toiled with misery. As centuries progressed, my descendants witnessed the abuse of injustice and the malice of prejudice. I was lynched and left to be hanged on a branch of a tree. My footsteps were immobile because I could not carry the weighted shackles. After a while, the cries of liberty escaped my memory as the wickedness of injustice increasingly outgrew my peace. But victoriously, I
A little bit of
banished
sound effects.
the wickedness of racism. Glory be to God who sent courage from above and set me free. Today, victory is mine because Jesus Christ and his mercies has pulled me out from the grave of bondage, and he declares me victorious.
All right. Very nice. Is that the end of that one?
Yeah, that's the end of it.
I have a question before you get to the next one. Do you sit and think through every word of every stanza? Or do you just write freely, allowing the words to flow?
I write freely. I allow the words to flow, but I have I have a mentor. I'd say, sort of, my wife, because as I write, I can write a poem, right away.
Mm-hmm.
But some words, she might think, hey, these words are offensive, get rid of them. Get rid of them. So I make, certain changes. But I usually write, free of mind, I just write my poems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
As the word flows, I write.
Okay, so you don't think through every word. You just let it flow.
I just let it flow, yes.
Okay. And then just one more question before you get to the next poem. When did you first start writing?
Well,
and were there any incidents in your life that made you want to write?
yes. Back about 30-some years ago, I was driving a car. I used to be an epileptic. So as I was driving the car, and all of a sudden, I felt that I was gonna have a seizure. So here I am, on the highway.
That was the first
on
time?
the highway. That was my first poem I wrote. On the highway.
Was that your first seizure?
No, it wasn't my first seizure. It was my first poem I wrote.
Right.
While I was driving, I felt the symptoms, so I just pulled over, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything else. On the highway,
Mm-hmm.
So the car just went by the curve, and stopped. But I gained conscience, after a couple of seconds. Then I heard a voice saying something to me. So got in the car, went home, went to bed, same voice again. That's when that was my first poem. I took a pen and started writing. I wrote the first poem, and the first poem I named it "Sick Man Cured." It's kind of long, but you wouldn't mind if I say it.
No, because we like to know what inspired you.
Okay.
So, okay, sure.
Laying flat in his bed, he was restless when pain tickled his heart and suffering invaded his body. Nevertheless, it was against his own will that the sick man canceled his daily activities to face the consequence of his iniquity. He who suffers pain constantly and tastes the bitterness of agony has sustained the evil of misery. Faithless and fearful, he disregarded his unbelief. Sorrowfully, the doctor pronounced his verdict. Your moments are short, the doctor said, and your time is about to elapse. Take courage and be brave, because death beckons you to join the sea of the dead while grief is piling in your courts. Vigorously, the sick man shouted, "Suffering! Suffering! I can't take this torturous punishment anymore. Go away and put an end to my life. Oh, wretched pain, you have increased my misery. You have added more damage to my struggle. You stole my joy, and you crippled my soul." In a feeble tone, the sick man said to his relatives and friends, "No need to pray. No need to stay, for the doctor has pronounced my verdict today. Who knows? Maybe I'll die tomorrow." Can one be pardoned by the love of grace and set free by the compassion of mercy? "Certainly," replied families and friends, as his wife loudly invoked the name of Jesus. "You are the greatest doctor of all time. Your wisdom surpasses the knowledge of all mankind. You can make the impossible become reality. No matter what sickness my husband suffered, you definitely have the right remedy. So, dear Lord, answer my prayer." Immediately, the sick man got up and said, "Glory be to God. All my pains are gone. My sickness is no more. I almost died, but now I have joy forevermore."
All right. Okay. Now, I have another question.
Yes.
What are you trying to communicate with your poetry? Like, what do you want people to get from what you write?
Well, like I said, poetry to me is another form is an art.
Right.
Yes. Poetry is like singing, like playing music.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, show the world that we live in a beautiful world. And all we have to practice in this world is love.
Mm-hmm.
Respect. Through my poetry, I want to portray love, respect, togetherness.
That's a beautiful thing.
I go from time to time. I go to visit, sick people, in hospital. I went to hospital once to visit a woman who was, she was dying of cancer. And on my way back, before I left, I told her, I said, "You wouldn't mind if I recite a poem for you?" She said, "Go ahead." And I recited a poem for her. And after I recited the poem for the lady, she got up She hugged me. She said, I needed to hear something just like that. Just like that. So I'm encouraged, to go to the hospital, to prison, and recite for people. Because that is another way you communicate, love with people through poetry.
So you have gone to prisons too?
Yes, prisons, hospitals, yes. And I do that. Like I said, it's going to take a while before I have to publish the book. But it's getting there. It's getting there. And like I said, my goal is to write, over 1,000 poems. I'm up to 700 and something yet. But,
And you have them all in your head. That's amazing. You're not
I have
reading?
about 30-something in my head, And anytime I write one, and I like it, right away I learn it.
I think that's amazing.
As a matter of fact, when President Obama, before he left, I wrote a poem for him, but I don't know if he did get.
You sent it to him?
I sent it to him, but I never got a response back. I would run for President Obama. I would wrote one for Oprah. I never got any response from him because my wife was encouraging me. She said, you never know. Just write it down.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. And still, they might contact you yet. You never know.
Okay, since we're doing Black History, so my poem should be based on,
Yeah, the next one.
The next one is Freedom. Freedom. I see the burden and I feel the pain. Under the banner of racism, violence rose up. Man associated with evil to destroy his own kind. No sense of pardon of any kind. Some so-called children of God treated their fellow men worse than beasts. Yes, I see the burden and I feel the pain. Man organized an institution of wickedness that promoted segregation and approved violence. What a shame. What an embarrassment. Yes, I see the burden and I feel the pain that caressed my breast and disturbed my rest. My heart is in pain and my spirit mourns. But hope holds fast to the promise of deliverance. I cried out to God and he set me free.
All right. Okay. And this is what I said, that most of his all of his poems have reference to God.
To God,
so
yes.
You just have to keep an open mind if you're not really into religion. But I think you can still get the message from the poems.
You see,
What do you think, T-Mac?
Yes, I agree. I think those poems were powerful. I had the volume down, and I had it muted because I was watching it on streaming on my tablet.
Mm-hmm. So it does add to it to see him, right?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah,
body language.
The body
language is always important.
Exactly.
It's a means of an additional communication. So
yeah, to get the full power
of
the poetry, seeing him in action is good.
Very good.
Now, this is one last question, and then you will continue. Do you care whether or not your words mean something to anyone? I mean, do you really care, or is the writing a self-serving exercise?
You see, I don't write to satisfy myself only. Like I said before, certain words that I use, my wife come to me and say, pat me on the shoulder. She said, listen, these words are too aggressive. Get rid of them.
So you do care. You do care.
So get rid of them. So I try not to offend, others with my writing, Mm-hmm. So I'm very careful when it comes to that. But just to get back on that subject about God, I'm a child of God, and I believe in God. All my poems, even those who are, I have a little poem entitled Circus of the Animals. But even this one, it's very long, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't know the English version. I know the French version, But it's wonderful about the animals. But we have to acknowledge one, like you said, some people, they don't consider God, but I do consider God. I recognize him to be, my creator.
And there's
I have to
nothing
glorify
wrong
his
with
name
that.
in whatever I do.
Absolutely.
Whatever I do, he allows me to do it. He gave me the intelligence, the knowledge, to do it. I have to show him, gratitude in return. Simple as that.
Okay, so do you have another one?
Another one I have is entitled, When I Die. That's, again, about slavery.
Okay.
When I die, let not my body be hanging on a branch of a tree, but like a wrench is secure in a toolbox, lay my corpse in a coffin where wild dogs will not be able to eat my bones, nor wild cats scratch my skins. Oh, when I die, lay my mortal body in a place where I can flee from slavery. Let novelty evaluate my worth, and let sympathy appreciate my work. Families and friends will appreciate my endeavor. My followers will continue to follow my footsteps until justice is done. Oh, when I die, let not my relatives and friends cry over my death, but may they recognize my great accomplishment. When I die, lay my mortal body in a grave where I will wait patiently on that great morning to wear that immortal robe, because I will rise again.
All right. Amen.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent.
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
One thing I would just like to comment. I think that your poetry, like you said, you write in many different genres and many different subjects, topics. But what I do see, and across the different genres that I've heard, is that your power and your dedication to your subject, your emotional connection with your words, and the picture that you're painting with these words. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very significant, and I think that's an art. That's definitely an art form, and you are truly an artist.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
I agree. I mean, he's really, his delivery is awesome, even with the words, So not only are the words awesome, but his delivery of it. That's why I wanted to stream it live, because you have to really see him in action to really understand it more. And I think it's great. Anything else you would like to add before we close? I was thinking of one other thing I wanted to ask you. But, I'm getting old, so, my memory is not what it used to be.
Stop.
So you have to bear with me. Sometimes I forget things. But I was wondering if you can recite, because, see, I love French. And that's a whole nother, I could do a whole show on that. Because when I was younger, like a teenager, a lot of Caribbean men, Trinidadians, Jamaicans, and Africans, everybody would come after me. But I always chose the French-speaking, the Haitians, because the language is so beautiful to my ear. So,
Je parle français un petit peu.
Yeah, that's why you keep trying to speak it.
Okay.
But and as I say, you do a great job. But I say you ain't, whatever. But so I just wondered if you could say, even though we don't know what you're saying, just a few
Okay.
words in French.
Okay, I'll say
Yeah.
it in French, but like I said, this poem, but most of my poems, I write them in 3 different languages.
Right.
Some of them I know in French, some of them I know in English, some of them I know in Haitian Creole. But like this poem I recited, Bondage, I know it in all 3 different languages.
So let's hear how about bondage
Bondage in French?
in French.
Bondage in French. Okay.
Or unless you have a
Bondage
different
in
one
French.
you wanna
Okay,
do.
I say the bondage in French.
Okay.
J'ai vu des larmes sanglantes écouler de mes yeux. J'ai entendu la voix de l'injustice qui oppresse ma race et condamne mes ancêtres.
See,
J'ai
I'm
un-
melting already.
J'ai enduré les martyrs de l'esclavage parce que j'étais né dans les seins de la captivité. Pendant de misérables années, de 10 à 15 ans, j'ai connu que peine, misère et souffrance. Et suivant les centenaires, mes descendants ont été empoisonnés par le venin de l'injustice et tranchés par l'épée de la violence. Pendant longtemps, les voix de l'injustice me dirigeaient vers les injustices et la voix de la me dirigeait vers les mais victorieusement, j'ai bravé l'esclavage et j'ai brisé les barrières de l'injustice. Gloire soit rendue à Dieu qui m'a délivré. Aujourd'hui, la victoire est à moi parce que Jésus-Christ, dans son ineffable amour, m'a ressuscité du tombeau de la captivité. Il m'a rendu victorieux.
All right. See how beautiful that was?
Okay, this one,
And I did understand bits and pieces of it.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Some of the words
This
you
one
did catch, right?
is
Yeah.
entitled, circus.
I don't know. I think.
Oh, we don't have time
I
for it?
think we got 1 minute. Can you say it really fast?
Maybe it's too long.
Oh,
It's too
okay.
long.
So, well,
It'll
you
take
know
more
what
than
that
1
means.
minute.
Yeah, you know what that means. We have to have you back once again.
Okay, like I said, it was a pleasure. And anytime, you can call me anytime, I'll be there. Because I enjoy the moment, to be here.
We
And we're
absolutely
honored in having you,
enjoy
and definitely thank you for being
It's
here.
definitely an honor and a treat, and thank you once again. And thanks for tuning in to the Jazzy Joy Keeping It Real show. Stay tuned. Every third week of the month, we have the AC Low show at this time. But the other shows we have coming up, issues with housing and
Yes,
and we have a
Carmen,
lot-
we coming at you, Carmen. We
Yeah.
see you looking.
and Carmen Quinones. We got to have her back here. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening and peace.
Okay?
Peace to everyone. Good night.
Bye. Good night. Good night.
Grandma, can Nina come over for dinner?
Sure. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen